This is episode A, Admiration. Feeling connected is a basic human need, as vital as air, water, and food. I'm here to talk about bridging the gap between ourselves, our friends and family, life partners, and anyone we come in contact with so we can more fully experience connection. I'm back. Oh, I've missed this, and I've missed you. But nothing in nature blooms all year, so let's all take a breath. I was reflecting on that quote, and what came to mind was, well, what about evergreen trees? Aren't they just green all year? Well, yes, they are green all year, but they do have a season where they are in a reduced activity state. So let's you and I take a breather. We're not meant to be running our entire lives. And let's focus on just being in a relationship, being connected, and just living and thriving. I know last season was a little bit gung-ho, let's get at it, do all the things all the time. And it's nice to be able to have taken a break and to now switch gears and talk about something new. First of all, though, I'd like to say that this episode is sponsored by Blue Rock Medical. Breast Cancer Awareness Month is coming up, and Blue Rock Medical is offering your first mammogram free during the month of October. Call them at 801-229-2002 to set up an appointment today. That's 801-229-2002. You know me, on from one thing to another so fast, but I just love experiencing things and learning new things and talking to you about new things. All through the lens of adversity and, of course, with inspirational quotes. So, who is ready for a new season? I'll pretend that you just said emphatic yes. This season is all about relationships. And if you're single, no worries, because it's not just romantic relationships. It's your relationship with yourself, with others, with your children if you have any, or with siblings, business relationships, anyone you come in contact with. This message is for you. Of course, marriage will be a huge component, but again, all relationships will be discussed. I have some great guests planned and some good topics to cover, so stay tuned. With starting another season, I feel like I'm kind of getting a little bit the hang of this, maybe, at least technologically, hopefully. With that said, I would love to build my audience, grow it, maybe monetize my podcast, look for bigger sponsors. So if you could help me with that endeavor, that would be great. Share this podcast however you can. If you know of any sponsors that are looking to help a podcast, let me know. All of the things. But I will do my part to show up for you every Thursday and make this worth your while. I remember talking to someone at one point and them speculating on what news would be like in heaven. And they mentioned that there would probably not really be any bad news. It would just be all good news. And so along those lines, I will be sharing some heavenly news, maybe every episode, maybe certain episodes. But I do know, as I've shared before, that what we look for expands, and the more we focus on the good, the more we see the good. Not to discount the bad or shove it under the rug, but if we have the good alongside the bad, it's easier to cope, easier to enjoy life, easier to appreciate the little things. I have two pieces of heavenly news, if you will. And the first one is I had a friend, not a super close friend, but a really good friend nonetheless, reach out to me and ask if she could watch my boys for a couple hours one week. She said she had some extra time on her hands and an available schedule and wanted to know if she could do that for me. Of course, I took her up on that, but I just thought that was so sweet of her to take my kids alongside her two kids and watch them. So that was sweet while I was able to get some things done. And my other bit of heavenly news is an older mom came and sat by me while I was at the pool with my boys, and she said she remembered being in my stage and just craving that adult conversation, that connection. And told herself that she needed to be that person for others now that she's past that stage. And so we talked for a long time. She helped watch my son in the pool, and it was just really sweet of her and thoughtful to think of me. Okay, other podcast stuff. Just some shout outs as we're talking about admiration today. Some of the people I've admired have been instrumental in me forming my podcast and have been incredible people that I look up to, who I've learned a lot from. I'll just review those quickly. So as you might remember, Jody Moore was my sort of mentor for season 1. My podcast was emulated a lot after hers, and I learned a lot from her and still continue to learn a lot from her. Her podcast is Better Than Happy, and she's a life coach, and I've learned so much from her and again, continue to do so. For my second season, it was Matthew Dix. He's an author, and he was even a guest on my podcast, and that was all about storytelling. Season 3, last season, was about empowerment, and I got the idea of doing segments and just kind of trying to be more real and vulnerable and authentic from Maddie Murphy on The Bad Broadcast. And now this season is kind of inspired by Kathy Heller. She has a podcast called Don't Keep Your Day Job. And I just really love her energy and the things she talks about, the way she empowers you, and just, again, has encouraged a lot of her listeners to start a podcast themselves or to grow their podcast, to monetize it. And so I will be learning a lot from her, or I hope to. She has a boot camp that I'm going to do about growing your podcast or making it more than it is. So we'll see where this takes us. Okay, now that we're halfway through the episode, on to admiration. This is one of the elements of a healthy relationship. When you have that admiration for another, it fosters respect. It helps you show the other that you approve of them, that you accept them, that you trust them and know who they are. Of relationships, Rupert Spira said he enjoys just the feeling of love between two people, just sitting there and basking in that. A lot of times, he said, we talk about ourselves as I am plus, whatever that plus may be. I am a teacher, I am a mom, I am happy, I am this right now, whatever it is you're feeling or whatever state you're in. But really, we need to just take away that plus, and that's what we are. That's who we are, our soul at our core. And similarly, in the relationship, if you're adding the plus to the we are, you're not focusing on just being in a relationship, or, again, not even romantically, just even with a child or a friend. We are plus. Whatever you're adding to that, you can just take that away and just bask in that fact that you are, that you know that person, that you're connected to them at this time, that you've crossed paths, and just relishing in that is so comforting and healing, and that's what builds that connection, is just sitting together in that togetherness. Admiration can be taken too far, however. We do need to avoid putting the other on a pedestal. This might be putting unrealistic expectations on them, might make them uncomfortable, kind of slides us into the hero mentality that they can do whatever or be this person or held to this standard, and that's kind of intimidating. You don't want to always have to be that person for them. It's a lot more comfortable in a relationship to just be. Speaking from experience, I get a little exhausted just having to not put up a total front, but just to act a certain way when I'm around people. I know a relationship is at a comfortable point when I can just be totally and wholly myself. And again, this depends on who you're with, but sometimes you might feel judgment or that you need to put on a facade or maintain a certain sense of composure or togetherness. And really, none of us has it all together. So we can just let our guard down and, again, break down those walls and barriers so that we can just experience more of that connection. I tend to be a neat freak, and I know a lot of people do this. They clean their house or really pick up and deep clean before others come over, and that's pretty ingrained in me. And so when someone does come over and my house is a little unkempt, I'm a little more stressed, a little more worried about what they're thinking, and really, we don't know other people's thoughts. We would be surprised at how accepting others are of us, and we can just let go of all that extra stuff and just relax in their presence. Wouldn't that be nice? Obviously, I'm still working on it too, as I said. It's almost as if I'm holding my breath sometimes when people are over because I'm trying to control everything or maintain everything, and that's what gets in the way of forming that bond. Who do you admire? I hope included in that list is yourself. Think about reasons why you admire them and how we can continue to foster admiration in society and in our relationships. A couple of the podcasts that I listen to have little summaries at the end, and I really like that idea just to help solidify what we talked about today, to keep those takeaways in our mind so that we can do something with the things that we listen to and not just have them go in one ear and out the other. Think, oh, that's a nice thought. It's that need in me to be learning and growing and doing. So just to recap, admiration is one of the elements of a healthy relationship. Take time to enjoy the feeling of love between you and another person. Avoid putting people on a pedestal. This causes unrealistic expectations for you and makes it uncomfortable for them. Thanks so much for joining me on a brand new podcast season. Share this with your friends, family, random strangers, anyone you meet. And again, all of us need that connection. Subscribe, rate, review. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you again next week.